Hello everyone, I'm Case Wilbanks with our Decision 2024 coverage of the Lubbock Mayor's race. Joining me now is Mark McBrayer, councilman and also one of 6 on the ballot for Mayor of Lubbock. So thanks so much for joining us. Let's introduce yourself to the voters.
Okay, thank you, Case. Yes, I'm a longtime resident of Lubbock. My dad moved us here after he got out of the Marines in World War II. He fought at Iwo Jima, moved his family here from Abilene back in the late 50s. I've been a resident here ever since. It's my home. It's where my wife grew up, and where we've gotten married. We both went to Texas Tech, and our kids live here. My daughter's a dentist. My son's a teacher, and his wife is a teacher as well. And they have our 2 granddaughters. So my past is here. My future is here in Lubbock, and it's my home. And that's one of the reasons I'm running, because I'm concerned about the future of my city. That's where my kids and my grandkids live, and I've served on the city council for 2 years now. I'm a practicing attorney, but I was already planning to retire from my practice this year. And when our mayor decided not to run, then I decided that I needed to get in this race to give voters a choice in an election, and it's turned out to be a big choice. You know, there's 6 people in the race, bigger than I suspected. So that's a little bit about me. I've owned a couple of businesses here in town as well. Started out as a youth minister. I'm an ordained Baptist minister, but you know, I joke that I didn't want to get involved. I didn't want to become a senior minister because I didn't want to get involved in church politics, because sometimes they can be worse than the kind of politics I'm involved in at the moment. And my son was a Navy SEAL, but he's chosen to come home and not make that a career and raise his family, and I'm happy with that decision too. So.
Yeah. Well, tell me about those concerns that you said that you have about the future.
Well, I grew up here in Lubbock, and my kids are here, like I said, and grandkids. And over time, it's always been a wonderful place to live. There's a lot of opportunities here in Lubbock. It's a good community, people with good values. I love the values that my dad raised me with and my mom raised me with here in Lubbock and in my church. And it's very important to me. But we have an increasing problem in our city with violent crime, and it's driven mostly by gang and drug activity in our city. And as we see those statistics, you don't even have to look at the statistics. All you have to do is listen at night for the sirens and everything, and wake up at the next morning and see the newscast that someone else has been shot, someone else has been murdered. And those kind of things concern me, because you can see cities where you don't get control of a crime problem, they go downhill pretty fast. We're in the process of choosing a new police chief here, and I want to make sure that whoever we get knows how to deal with that specific kind of crime, because that's what drives a lot of not just the murders and the shootings, but also the petty crime and the thefts and the robberies in our city. It's all drug related. So I want to get a handle on that so that Lubbock can continue to be a great place to live.
So what can you specifically do as mayor to address that?
The main important thing that you can do to address a crime problem like that is to make sure that you have a sufficient number of fully funded and a full police force. You have enough people out there on patrol and in the backup positions so that your police officers and your public safety can address those particular kinds of crimes. So again, it starts with the right leadership, someone who knows how to deal with that issue, and then it starts with police officers, a sufficient number of police officers to handle that problem. And our police officers in Lubbock have not been paid what they need to be paid. We lose a lot of them to other cities. We lose them to Midland and to Abilene because they can make a lot more money there. So you bring somebody in, you train them, and then in a couple of years they leave. And so we're underfunded and we're under manned in our police force at the moment. So I have the support of the Lubbock Professional Police Association, because I talked with them at length. They believe that I'm serious about addressing that problem and working with them to make sure that problem's addressed. But they're the key to that. They are the key to that.
So where do you find that funding to pay them to hire more people and create those positions?
Funding in a city, it's a wonderful question, because I'm also a person who stands for low taxes, not raising people's taxes. People say, well, how can you do that? It's a matter of priorities. And you have to have in your mind what those priorities are. And I think if you ask anybody in this city, the number one priority, the number one job of a city is public safety. And if you have a rising crime problem, then you have to make sure that your funds whatever that pot of money is moved to that priority. If it's a priority, then it deserves a priority in your funding, which does mean in tough times when you can't raise people's taxes, you need to look carefully at any other area of your budget that's not a priority and cap that area, not grow that area so that you can move the money that you have into the public safety priority. So that's how you do it. I get very tired of people saying, well, if we don't raise your taxes, then we can't hire more police officers. And that's not your only option. Your option is to look in other areas of your budget that are not essential and not priorities, and that's where you go to find the money. We're in difficult times for a lot of our citizens. My son, his wife, you know, they're both teachers. They live on a modest income. They're raising my 2 granddaughters. They're hit by inflation. Their wages don't keep up with that. Their home insurance costs have gone up. And so when the city comes to them and says, oh, we need more money to operate on, even though you're in tough times, my position is no, the city needs to do a better job of moving the money where it needs to be to take care of those priorities before you start asking your citizens to come up with more money.
And so you've seen the budget being on the council. Where do you see those cuts?
Well, again, we as council members and mayors don't go into a budget and say cut here, cut here. We set policy, and if you say your policy is your police and your public safety people, your firemen, you don't touch that, then you tell your city manager to find those funds elsewhere in other departments. That's his job to do that. That's why he's paid the money he's paid to go in and find that, because he has his hands on all of that and what is needed in those other areas. I mean, we can give him some general direction, but it's not our job to get in there and say, well, eliminate this position, eliminate that position. We tell them, this is where you don't cut, this is where you cut, go find the money. And so that's what I'm only one vote on the council. I'll be the mayor, but I have one vote like everybody else. But I intend to try to lead in that direction to make sure that we fund our priorities without raising taxes.
But you do have some say, especially as mayor, you know, like you said, over the city manager of what budget you would like to see. So do you have any idea of where you would see that money coming from?
You know, you can talk about non-essential areas. I think the essential areas, the most essential areas are police and public safety and fire first. Streets and infrastructure maintenance second. Everything else is a third tier matter. And so that's your parks, your recreational, your libraries, a lot of other things that you would like to do and that are good to do in good times. But I don't believe that we are in good times for a lot of our citizens. The economy is still rough on a lot of them. So we have to be disciplined with our budget because we're asking them to give us more money. We're taking money out of their household budgets. And so we can't just go to them and act like that's not important. You know, their concerns aren't as important as the city's concerns and needs. And that's why I'm running on these issues. If that's what the public understands and they see and they want, then that's what they will get with me.
Okay. Your campaign is a choice for a new direction, I believe. So what do you say to people who say, I don't want a new direction, I like the way Lubbock is now? What would you say to them?
They've got their candidate, you know, and it's not me. I'm not a status quo candidate in this race. That's the reason I got in it. If the status quo was fine for me, I would have just continued to serve on the city council for my remaining 2 years and then maybe run again. I got in it because I believed that I offered the citizens a choice in this election, and I believe they're ready and they want that choice. That's the sense I get, that's the feedback I get. So, you know, I'm offering myself so that people this time actually do have a choice in an election, and standing on my points, which is public safety and how I would deal with it through personnel. You know, my main opponent in this race, you know, points to the fact he built a lot of new buildings, but that doesn't solve a crime problem. Your police do. Keeping your taxes low, which he has always voted for a tax rate that raises taxes. I've always voted for a tax rate that would not raise your taxes.
At least it raises more revenue.
Yes, and and raises the tax bill that people end up having to pay. You know, he will talk about, I've lowered your tax rate, but people will say, well, then why did my tax bill go up? It's because you didn't lower the rate enough. Because when you get high appraisals, the city council sets a tax rate, and that's what determines what you pay in taxes, not your appraisal. Your appraisal can go wherever it is, and then your city council sets the tax rate low enough that your taxes don't go up. But if we don't lower it enough, your taxes will go up. So people can say, I lowered the tax rate without actually not raising your taxes. So that's another thing. And my third main point, I think the reason I'm in this race is I stand for protecting our neighborhoods and the quality of life in our neighborhoods. 2 times I've fought big developers, out-of-town developers who wanted to come in and build really large 700 population student housing right next to established neighborhoods. And to do that, they wanted to change all the zoning laws that were in place to protect those neighborhoods and do away with a lot of the restrictions on density and setbacks and everything to build what they wanted to build there that would make them the most money. And both times I led the fight against them. That's a big issue. Steve Massaguel, my main opponent in this, and Tony Renteria, both are saying we should have built those. I say no, we shouldn't have built them. I believe that's important. Neighborhoods are important here.
And you know, we've talked a lot about changes to different policies in the city, and you mentioned it earlier about the values of Lubbock. What would you say to people that they should be proud of in Lubbock? What are you proud of in Lubbock?
I was raised by my dad and mom. You know, my dad said, you know, you love and you find ways to serve God, your family, and you know, your nation. And so I've tried to do that. Those values are very deeply instilled. We are a community that loves God. We are a great community for raising our families. We are proud and patriotic. We are a community that values the sanctity of life, and we respect each other. And we believe in personal responsibility and limited government. All those things are very important to me. They're ingrained in my soul, and they're commitments that I've made, and I believe that's consistent with what is important to the citizens here in Lubbock. And they want somebody who represents that. They want somebody with integrity and transparency and accountability for those who won't just say one thing to them and then get in office and do something different. I've tried to make it very clear what I stand for and what I would do, because I don't want people just voting for a name or a face to fill a position. I want them to feel like they actually are going to have a voice in an election and have someone there that will stand up for what's important to them.
All right. Mark McBrayer, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Early voting continues until April 30th. Election day is May 4th, and join us on May 4th for election coverage you can count on.